Hey everybody, look who we got in the shop today. Mr. Interstate Made Me. Actually, we don't have him most of the week, and while it's here I thought I'd use his truck as an example of how you gotta be creative in the shop and find solutions to things that prior mechanics and bodymen messed up and need attention. Here on this truck, the mirror brackets haven't wanted to stay tight ever since Jermail bought the truck. You can see here, hopefully, they got some nasty screws holding the brackets on. And you can see that it actually has allowed the bracket to become loose from the door repeatedly. We keep tightening them up and they just keep getting loose again and again. And so our challenge here is we want the end result to match the truck and be beautiful. And yet, I can tell you and show you here in a minute, what's been done to this truck, you cannot repair it very easily or in the factory manner, because those screws from the factory would have been some 1/4-inch stainless pop rivets, and now the holes in the door are too big for those pop rivets to catch hold and actually stay in place and stay tight. So I got a solution I think will be satisfactory for this truck, and so I'm going to pull the brackets down, show you again what was done to it, and then what I'm going to do to make it right. Alright everybody, I got these mirror brackets taken off both sides of the truck. As I was doing that, it occurred to me that, boy, there's a lot of stuff I can tell people about Peterbilt mirrors and their doors and stuff. So some of this you may know, but if you don't, I think I could be kind of helpful if you're running an older Peterbilt with the door mounted mirrors like these. First thing I'd like to point out is if you look at it, there's a black plastic gasket on top and bottom of these. You can see it here. There's one that's came off, and so that gasket, you may know, is to help prevent the corrosive effect of the stainless rivets and the stainless brackets from having that white rust corrosion effect that you often see on Peterbilts. The stainless and the aluminum of the door frame don't get along together, and they'll create white rust corrosion awfully bad. There's an older truck over here. I'll bet you I can show you some on this truck. This truck's a 97. Well, surprisingly, no corrosion on this. I forget what year we had that painted. It's been a while. There you can see a little bit popping up. Not too bad, all things considered. I'm sure everybody's seen them much worse. But anyway, originally when Peterbilt was making their 379s, they didn't have that gasket, yet the stuff they put on the roads wasn't as corrosive, I think, and so it took longer for it to happen, and wasn't quite such a big concern. But eventually it got to be a big deal, and they added these gaskets, and at the same time they did that, the stainless pop rivets that would hold the bracket to the cab sill plate here and up at the top, they actually put a piece of plastic coating or like a barrier around that pop rivet, so that when that pop rivet squeezed tight, it wouldn't actually put stainless against the aluminum. And those two things were actually pretty effective at keeping the the corrosion from occurring. It wasn't foolproof, but it had a great effect on it. The problem occurs when you have trucks that have been repainted like this, and guys pop out those stainless rivets, and yeah, they put the gasket back on, but now the new rivets they have don't have that plastic on it, and so a 1/4-inch pop rivet is loose in the hole. Personally, what I do is I find some plastic tubing and squeeze it over there and kind of recreate my own, plastic coated rivet out of just normal stainless ones. However, most guys end up, coming up with some other means. This one here, they put those rubber nuts into it, well nuts I guess is what they call them, but in order to do that they had to bore out this hole gigantic. And if you own a truck, never ever use these rubber well nuts on anything. I don't care what it's for, don't do it. They come in the visor kits. You put it in or behind a bracket for a visor, or on these mirrors. They're getting hit by wind all day long. How is that rubber going to hold anything in place? What you end up doing is you destroy roof caps, and your door mirrors are just going to constantly loosen on you. It's just not thinking ahead very far at all to put something like that in there. And now the hole's bored out so big, it's really limited to what you can do with it. This has become a real big problem. I will show you, I do have a plan for these, but I want to go back to the corrosion topic real quick. Say you have corrosion on your doors already and you're ready to paint it. That paint, once you have the corrosion, it's going to come back through the paint even if you have new paint and sealer on it. So what you can do is put these drops on the top, clean up and paint the door frame obviously, but then put drops over top of them, and that will keep the corrosion from coming back at the top of the door frame. On this bottom, that sill plate can be replaced. You knock it out, take all those rivets out, and then there's a small bead of weld on the front and back where the sill plate joins to the door frame. So you got to cut that weld and then re-weld it in before painting. Now you got brand new fresh metal at your sill plate, and it'll take a good paint job, and you'll have a truck that has a nice paint job for years to come. I wouldn't be surprised if when we painted that truck, I think I did put new sill plates in that one. It's been a long time ago and it's been holding up pretty good, because that truck actually came from Canada, and the frame on it and everything was pretty decently rusted when we got it in, and I know it saw a lot of corrosion and stuff, and those doors look real nice today. And boy, it's been 15 years or more since we day cabbed that truck and repainted it and everything. When you're working on these mirrors, you want to make your cut for your wires right there, and don't splice your wires, in that area. It's ugly. You're going to subject it to more weather and junk from the road that's don't corrode. You want to do your splice on the inside underneath the A-frame. Alright everybody, a couple more things on these Peterbilt mirrors, on these old door mounted mirror trucks. You can see this one here is a stock setup. You see the angled bar coming from the top at the door and going down and away from the truck. I don't know if you noticed or not, but Jermail's truck, that'd be Interstate Made Me. If you hear me say Jermail, I'm talking about Interstate Made Me. His mirrors have been flipped, his mirror brackets have been flipped, and now on his truck that angled bar goes the opposite direction. You can see there it angles down toward the door. So that's a simple, easy mod you can do, but when you do it, you got to fill up the holes for the routing the wires with some silicone or something, keep the water from going in. But other than that, it's relatively simple. You move your spot mirror to the other side of the mirror bracket, you readjust your mirrors. You do have to re-drill your sill plate and your top of your door frame because the rivets are in a little different locations. You can see the original top rivet was there and it moved over forward a couple inches, and vice versa on the top there. But pretty simple mod. It lowers your mirrors by, I don't know, 2 or 3 inches. Easy to do, and if you start paying attention, you see a lot of trucks have done that. So I was talking yesterday about the problems with corrosion, the problem with the rivets getting loose if people screw up messing on your truck, working on your truck. So something that a lot of people think about and consider is, well, can I just change the truck over to the new style mirrors that are mounted on the cab instead of the truck door? And you can, but there's some things that you got to consider along the way. You're not probably just going to go out and buy some late model 379 or 389 doors. They would bolt up reasonably well. The latches change eventually, but as far as like the shape of the door and stuff, they're the same. However, there's actually only 1 year where they made doors that work well to swap over. And about midway through 2004 is when they changed to the cab mounted mirror brackets. And they, at the same time, didn't really change anything else. They had the single piece glass in the door and the mirror brackets changed, but they still had your oval peephole here. They had the old style handle, and the interior panels are still the same shape. They changed the interior latch, but that's not a big deal. The main critical thing is this sill plate right here. On these older trucks, it's horizontal, it's flat. On the newer ones, they angle down towards the front of the truck slightly. And so that's actually a really big deal. If you get one of those newer doors, then your interior's not going to fit, and you're going to have the wrong skin for your handle. So you got to find something that's about mid 2004 to mid 2005. If you can find a door off one of those, unbolt it, put it on, bolt the mirror brackets up, you've got it made. That's hard to come by. So some guys would say, well, I don't really care so much about the glass, but can we just put mirror brackets on it, move them to the cab? Yes, you can. You just get rid of your sill plate there, cut those welds and rivets like I was talking, put a new one in, because when you buy the brand new ones, they don't have holes drilled for the mirror brackets. You got to do those yourselves. Then you put a drop up there like that one has, and then you put brackets on your cab for your cab mounted mirror brackets. However, after you do all that and you put a driver in the seat, he's going to find out that when he looks through his passenger side door towards his mirror, his mirror is being obstructed by the bar on the A-frame window. This bar here lines right up with that mirror, because that mirror with the new bracket gets moved forward and out a little bit, and it's right in the way. So really, to have the best result, you need to change to a single piece glass as well, which that it's nice. There you got less wind coming into the cab, especially now that your mirror bracket's not catching wind. It's unobstructed view and everything. It's nice. However, we also found out that that's still costly and more difficult than you think, because that single piece glass is significantly different than what's in there now. You gotta move, there's a track for the door or the glass to go down right here. Well, now it's moved out here and it's not in the door frame. This end, the track is part of the door frame. This end, you got to put a little track there. There's a couple brackets that hold it in place. Up here in the corner, there's a little deal you got to put in there, a little, I don't know, metal spacer deal, part of the track kind of. You got to buy new felt to go around it. You got to modify this peephole here. There's plastic trim around it. Well, the glass comes down past that trim, so you got to notch that trim so that glass can go down and end up being, you know, about that far down on the truck when the window's down, which is not a big deal. You can notch that out and it's not real visible. But the bigger problem, or the biggest problem, besides the expense and the time it takes to do all that, your window regulator no longer works. What I've done in the past on one truck, and is a real pain, it took forever to get it adjusted, and I had to keep going back and trying again. But the channel that your up and down glass goes in, on the bottom there's a press on channel, and so you got to take it off the old one, move it forward to put it more in the center again, and put it back on. Then you got to move your window regulator forward, and most of these older trucks, if you don't have a crank window, it's air, so you move it forward, but you're kind of guessing. And it will work eventually. You can get it dialed in, it'll go up and down, but boy, it's hard to keep it from jamming. You got to get it just perfect. And then that air cylinder is just barely big enough to pick up that heavy piece of glass. So you got to have good regulators. If they're too weak, they're not don't want to do it. If you got manual crank, then you got even more problems, I think, because then your crank handle is going to want to be moved in relationship to how much you had to move your the center of your regulator where it's lifting up and down. And you don't want to do that, because then you got to modify your interior. There might not be space, just don't want to jam on you. Just, that's a bad idea. Okay, so you want to change over to electric. Well, again, they did put electric in the old style interiors for, I think that maybe that 1 year, that 4.5 to 5.5, because they had the single piece glass that year, but they had the old interiors. So again, if you could find those regulators, I know that the switches and the wiring to that regulator are different from what they came out with when they changed the interior in late 05, 06. So you're really looking for a unicorn that you can steal several parts out of, if you want to do a conversion. Otherwise, it can be done. It's tedious and it's costly, but it's pretty cool when it's done, and it makes the interior experience driving the truck a lot nicer. So that's some stuff to keep in mind before you go and jump off doing any of that stuff. So once again, I took a bad video last night, so here we are next morning. I just wanted to show the end result. of getting those mirrors remounted. You can see I used some 1/4-inch bolts with acorn nuts, and so for the bottom the bolts are very short, just going through that sill plate and not interfering with the glass or anything on the inside. Up at the top they're 2 3/4-inch bolts roughly, and I had to drill all the way through the door frame at the top, and so we just got some round-headed screws, which, you know, they're not horrible, they don't show up, they're not going to interfere with the seal or nothing, but the end result is those are securely attached mirrors now, and they look pretty decent.